How's it going? You read the title already, so let's not meander more than we need. If you aren't already familiar with the game in question, Psychonauts is a 3D collectathon platformer originally released for the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox. What sets it apart from its contemporaries is its offbeat art style, linearity, personality-filled writing, and the main premise of delving into minds of others as a child with psychic abilities. It's not the most polished or well-rounded game, but it's so jam-packed with originality, humor, and heartfelt sincerity that it ends up as one of the best platformers from there, at least in my opinion. This video is not a review though, it's a mission to get every Steam achievement we can and hopefully have fun doing so. The spread we have to work with is actually pretty well thought out, although to be fair, collectathons are almost always made with collecting things in mind, believe it or not. Since I've played the game before, I will not be starting from scratch, although it won't make too much of a difference even if I was, since other than these two achievements that I'll explain in a moment, everything I'm starting out with is directly tied to story progression and therefore beating the game, which we will have to do regardless. Let's categorize some of the achievements to make digesting the list of 37 a bit easier. The achievements that will be taking the majority of our time, as you may expect, are the ones tied to collecting collectibles in this collectathon. In approximate order of how rare the achievements are, we have to collect 19 child brains, some finite number of golden helmets which is not given to you in-game, 16 scavenger hunt items, 19 vaults, 50 instances of emotional baggage and their tags, and 1,600 figments. These, however, are only the collectibles that will give achievements directly, which is a distinction that will become relevant in approximately 7 seconds as we move on to our next major category, ranks. At first glance, your rank is seemingly akin to character level in a typical RPG, even increasing the strength of our abilities at milestones divisible by 5, but since the sources of our ranks are all finite, it essentially means that for our purposes, it's just another 3 types of collectibles to add to our shopping list. 117 Psy cards, 9 Psy challenge markers, and 54 cobwebs. Getting max rank, and thereby nabbing this singular achievement, requires us to collect all 1,780 collectibles in the game on a single save file, so really all of these achievements are redundant for our purposes, but I'll still be taking note of them as if they aren't because it gives me more keys to jingle in front of your face. This also means that any collectible progress I have on other save files is worthless, so as tempting as it is to quickly grab the one child brain I'm missing from this save file to get an achievement pop, it'd be for naught. Our next category will be the somewhat vague go to a specific place set, which, believe it or not, all require us to go to a specific place, whether that be finding a secret area or simply striking up a conversation with someone during a specific story beat, such as Wolpaw Says Thanks, which is one of the 2 achievements that I already have and won't be retreading. Some of the more active listeners may have realized that this does mean that there are achievements that we can lock ourselves out of getting if we aren't careful, which is a little scary, but so long as I don't forget to check the list before and after every level and get things done as soon as they're available, there shouldn't be too much issue. The rest of the achievements don't share many properties with each other, but most of them aren't all that notable, usually just doing something that's otherwise pointless and somewhat easy to miss, but easy to perform if you've read the achievement descriptions beforehand, like exhausting certain dialogues, revisiting all the worlds after beating the game, or the second of the 2 achievements I already have, Self-Aware, which requires you to use clairvoyance on 13 unique non-hostile things. Of these, the 2 most notable are probably I Love Punching, which asks you to complete a minigame, and the second rarest achievement in the game, Christmas Shopping, which wants us to buy something from the camp store on Christmas Day, but thankfully computers are stupid, and will kindly believe you if you tell them that the Earth made a sudden extra quarter orbit around the sun. Now, let's talk strategy. This script is/was written in parallel to the gameplay, so what I end up doing may differ slightly or wildly, but no plan at all is a plan to fail. As I said before, there's multiple points of no return for our expansive checklist of things to see, do, and collect. But backtracking is also required for many of the collectibles since we will be unlocking abilities as we progress the story and increase our rank. I'll try to get as much as I can as fast as I can, but there's a part of me that really wants to speedrun to the point of the game where I get levitation, as it massively improves our mobility and therefore my overall enjoyment of the game. Cross-referencing a guide on my second monitor will be of utmost importance if I want to get this done in one playthrough, let alone in a timely manner. You may consider using a guide cheating, but as far as I'm aware, having integrity doesn't give me a Steam achievement achievement, so I couldn't care less. We are also unfortunately incentivized to grind for arrowheads, which is the currency used at the shop, as there's some required items that are directly and indirectly tied to purchases that can be made at practically any point in the game, which, in the language of safety strats, directly translates to as soon as humanly possible. I'll be saving for the dowsing rod as my first purchase, and from there I'll grind as long as I need to unlock the cobweb duster, which is not only required to collect the cobwebs found throughout all the levels of the game, but also to beat the game in general. Also required to us is the psi cores, of which we need 19, and they're pretty cheap, so might as well get them out of the way as well. The mental magnet badge is by no means required, but it will be nice to have, so while I probably won't be grinding for it, I'll make a point to grab it when it's convenient. Finally, there's the psi energy colorizer, which, while technically entirely useless to us, will be absolutely required because I like colors. Whether I beeline to it or not, once the third level is beaten and I have access to levitation, I will be doing my damnedest to collect every single item in the camp, as well as cleaning up anything I may have missed in the first 3 mental worlds. From there, I should be good to simply take the game one level at a time until I reach what is referred to in-game as the point of no return, where I'll have a few more chores to take care of in the overworld before I can beat the game and take my victory lap. Seems simple enough, if a bit tedious at times, but I am a little scared that I'll miss something, or worse, the game bugs or my internet crashes at just the wrong time and my achievement doesn't actually get popped. So long as I don't miss anything for the max rank achievement, however, starting a second save file to clean up afterwards shouldn't be all too taxing. While sitting here pondering all afternoon isn't gonna get me any achievements, so let's jump into the meat of it all. Booting the game up, I go to make a new save file and... You can't select an empty file from the load game menu despite it being visually identical to the new game menu. Well, after getting that solved, I do the very basic dream sequence tutorial before these children spawn into existence in front of me, warning me not to be late for basic braining. Taking their advice to heart, I immediately start wandering around the section of the hub world available to me for anything I can get, which happens to be a scavenger hunt item I can't get without pyrokinesis, our first challenge marker, and therefore our first rank, and a decent amount of side cards. While I will have to grab every single one of these cards, there's way too many to take note of each and every one of them, so I'll be grazing over the details for most of them throughout this video. After watching Nils peep into the empty girl's cabin, and witnessing Dogen violate several animal rights and hunting laws, I make damn sure that I'll end up late to class before heading into the first level of the game. The mind of Coach Oleander, basic braining. Pre-rendered cutscene jump scare, a child explodes, Oleander says a cuss word, this is going absolutely swimmingly. As this level acts as the game's tutorial, we're pretty railroaded in terms of what we can do, with the first figment, emotional baggage and its tag, and vault directly placed into our hands just to make sure we know they exist. So I pretty much just played as normal with a little extra care to grab all the figments lying around. After collecting the second emotional baggage tag that happens to be placed directly in my path, we have our first required run-in with Lily, and right after that I am reminded of one of the biggest annoyances related to collecting figments, the ones that move. It's not like they have small movement paths either, their cycles can often be minutes long, and some of them, such as these, move asynchronously with moving platforms. My strategy for dealing with these for now is to just jump at them when they're close enough, even if it leads to death. Using my awesome gamer skills, I was able to sniff out the secret path that skips the blimps, which only ends up being marginally faster than the intended route, but as pointless and random as it may be, there's figments down here, so to us, it is required. After some playground insults from Oleander...
Is your name Joey?
No.
Because I'm gonna call you Slowy Joey.
That's not my name.
What was that, Slowy? I can't hear ya, you're talking too slow.
We take a slight detour to find the baggage that correlates to that tag from earlier. If you haven't pieced it together, to sort out the baggage, we must reunite them with their respective tag, meaning to collect each instance, we actually have to find 2 separate specific objects. Hopefully finding the tag before the bag as to minimize backtracking. Another child explodes in front of our eyes. Just to rub salt in the wound, we immediately have to navigate a densely packed minefield. I spend the extra time to tediously and optionally help Dogen through as well, simply to prove I'm a good person, as the reward is 3 fucking arrowheads. If I weren't such an amazing and generous person, this would deeply anger me and induce violent thoughts. Leaving Dogen entirely unstrangled, we learn a valuable lesson about skydiving safety. Jumping without a parachute is dangerous, as it greatly increases the chances of detonating a nuclear bomb just outside the view of the camera. Jesus, that was loud. Here we get our first achievement in the game, I Love Punching, which asks us to beat the highest level of this minigame that you can apparently play more than one time. Honestly, the hardest part about it was just listening to Crystal and Clem screech at us. Watch me strangle these children. Thankfully, they die a fiery death after the first round, and I could pretend I'm playing Guilty Gear in silence. I got the third piece of baggage and its tag while completely missing the point of the section it's located in, and then the fourth tag not even 50 meters away from the previous. Mario Galaxy, Rayman 2, evidence that this game was not made with 16:9 in mind. I come across the first instance of required backtracking in the form of the first mental cobweb, and while I contemplate upon this fact, a figment takes pity on me and collects itself. A stone's throw away, I find more cobweb, this time blocking a mental vault, with the fifth tag and its respective baggage right next to it to serve as the first-person camera tutorial. There's a rail grinding section with an arrangement of figments that are nearly impossible to grab all in one go, but since I have to replay the section anyways for the cobwebs, it's not too big of a deal. To close off the level, we have the old crazy tunnel with rolling logs bit.
The old rolling tunnel of crazy logs bit.
With a couple particularly annoying figments that boost us up to rank 8. Not too bad for the first level. Now that we have access to the entire campgrounds, I have some chores I gotta get done. I wish I could say I was methodical about it, but I get distracted easily.
This is the button that
So I kinda just wandered around aimlessly, grabbing anything that was convenient, and appreciating the writing, which to this day stands amongst the best, comedically and world-building wise.
would.
Arriving at the store, I realized you actually aren't allowed to buy the dowsing rod until you're rank 10. Neglecting to notice until I reviewed the footage that the cobweb duster is locked until rank 20, so I bought a Psycore and meandered in the direction of Agent Kreller's secret lab to get my rank up. Of course, numbers are really hard to keep track of, so I didn't realize I actually needed 2 Psycores to get to rank 10. After grabbing a piece of bacon from Ford, which will be used shortly for an achievement, I ran back to the shop, grabbed the second core, went back to the lab, and reached rank 10, which unlocks the first new psychic ability, Pyrokinesis. Casually, it's pretty pathetic, only really serving as a damage over time effect that takes too long to apply. But I can immediately put it to use, grabbing that scavenger hunt item from the beginning of the game, as well as killing the spare that blocks a second. Once I found my way back to the main lodge, I am the tickle monster. I am here to tickle you. Ronald Reagan. I bought the dowsing rod, which reminded me of how much I hate the dowsing rod, so instead of grinding for arrowheads, I grabbed the scavenger hunt item that was laying out in the open, then I took care of some easy achievements. One for spamming A after using bacon, another 3 for spamming Y in front of this log, this bulletin board, and on top of this stump. I also tried to get this achievement, but what you're specifically supposed to do isn't very clear, and I couldn't manage to do it after about 10 minutes of attempts. So I decided to set the game down for the day, since I realized that it was 2:30 in the morning, which was somehow a shock to me after willingly starting after midnight. The next session starts with me realizing I'm massively moronic. I'm stupid. As it turns out, I'm stupid. As it turns out, to get 2 different types of roasts, you have to cook 2 different types of animals. After that self-embarrassment, I went to the store, getting the Christmas shopping achievement after asking the calendar to look the other way, and then picked up a scavenger hunt item in the rafters. I explored around the beach as well, since I entirely forgot to do so on the last day, where I got another scavenger hunt item as well as the expected side cards. I doused my way over to the Geodesic Psycho-Isolation Chamber, which is where the next couple of mental worlds are, and after finding a challenge marker and grinding out enough arrowheads to buy the cobweb duster, I entered Sasha's secret lab, where I immediately find another scavenger hunt item and take the plunge into the brain tumbler, which will be our shortcut and often only path into the mental worlds we've already completed, as well as the next level of the game, with heavy quotes and asterisks there because it's mostly a convenient hallway for plot progression that we have to visit 3 times minimum. For now, we managed to grab a vault and 2 tags before running into a shadow monster. A forest shadow monster even. Despite only engaging with meaningful progression for about 5 minutes, we actually have to go fuck around in the woods some more to engage with some casual racism for this achievement, grabbing 1 more scavenger hunt item for shits and giggles, and then getting a gun permit at the age of 10 like a true American. Sasha Shooting Gallery, the next mental world, is really dense, so we immediately get 2 of the emotional baggage and a vault as soon as the first segment opens, and the figments here are enough to break through to rank 20. The second segment has another tag and its respective baggage, as well as some figments that we can't get without levitation. Believe it or not, the third segment has another piece of baggage to sort, and it's the same song and dance for the fourth. Our first boss fight of the game is summoned, and it's just as quickly dispatched. Raz hits the A pose, I grab a useless psi ability, and then I finally purchase the coveted cobweb duster, as well as a handful of cores for the road. I immediately jump back into Sasha's mind to grab the 5 cobwebs that are there, as well as this easily missable vault. Oleander's mind is still blocked off for story reasons, so might as well progress the story enough to unlock levitation. Second visit of the Brain Tumbler experiment, we find the 2 bags that go with the 2 tags we already found, as well as the last 3 tag bag pairs, cobwebs, a vault, and our first of 6 golden helmets. Somehow, I'm already at rank 30. As I said before, this world is basically a hallway. So the only noteworthy thing about this dive are these yellow bird figments that move annoyingly fast along annoyingly long paths. We get our boating license, learn a slightly less useless psychic ability, crack some jokes that are frankly way too deep cut for their own good.
Hey, do you happen to know the country code for Tuvalu? TV?
And then jump straight into the next level. Mia's dance party, from front to back, acts as a tutorial for the most unique and arguably powerful ability in the game, the one I keep alluding to this whole time, levitation. It greatly increases our ground speed on flat and downhill surfaces, extends our jump height and distance a ludicrous amount, and also allows us to slow our fall to the point where it's closer to gliding than falling. This ability has no time limit or resource cost, and it's useful practically everywhere, so don't be surprised if I'm using it for 90% of the rest of the video. Since we have our full arsenal going into every new level from this point, you can assume that I got most, if not all, of everything we need without much issue. For the sake of time, I'll only be pointing out things that are particularly problematic or otherwise noteworthy from now on. I'm only about a third through the game at this point after all, and it's already been 15 minutes. Mia's mind is incredibly colorful, as you can see, which can make spotting figments difficult, but I managed to get all of them in the first of the 3 segments without issue. Levitating over to this inconspicuous balcony closest to the start of the level allows us to see one of the most disturbing things in this game, and grants us an achievement for our trouble. The second segment of Mia's dance party is honestly kind of awful in terms of figments. I mean, it's a one-way downhill race course with multiple possible paths in the most saturated environment yet, what do you expect? I got what I could see, but I was getting hungry at this point, so after my third run of the course, I decided to leave the rest of it for later. The final segment has a couple of tricky figments, and landing on this platform whatsoever plays the end cutscene and boots you out to the overworld. Ignoring the figments I missed, I gotten everything without much issue and reached rank 40. After dinner, I decided to do a clean sweep of the campgrounds. I grabbed a few sidecards along the beach that I couldn't have reached without levitation, listened to the story that would have given me this achievement had I not already had it, and then beeline to the geodesic psycho-isolation chamber to nab the last time-sensitive achievement until basically the end of the game. With the fear of missing an achievement lifted, I gleefully went through the camp area by area, collecting all remaining challenge markers, cards, and scavenger hunt items, save for 2 that we can't get till later. Near the kids' cabins, I only had to grab 1 card. The game just crashed. Thankful that I didn't lose any progress, I used levitation to scale this cliff to grab the last side card, and moved on to the main lodge, where I needed 9 cards, 1 challenge marker, and 1 scav hunt item. Most of them were pretty easy, especially with levitation, but this 1 card in particular is placed in a pretty rude spot, to be frank. In the reception area, I had 5 cards and 2 scavenger hunt items left, including a funny hidden cave behind a waterfall, and no real hiccups overall. Lastly was the geodesic psycho-isolation chamber, which still had 1 challenge marker, 6 cards, and 4 scavenger hunt items for me, although one of them requires an ability I don't have yet. As I was searching, I somehow managed to claim the reward for having half of all the scavenger hunt items, which brought me to rank 45. Once again, no real hiccups in clearing this area out. Other than, of course, the 20 minutes I spent trying to find the last challenge marker, which I didn't even end up finding even with a guide. Seriously, I swear I scoured the entire area. I do not know where it could be. I was convinced that somehow the menu was bugged, and I actually did find it, and it just didn't track it. But I reviewed the footage, and no, I seriously just have no clue. I didn't get it. I don't know where the fuck it is. I'm gonna have to look at a video walkthrough or something, which I really prefer not to do, but I'm out of options here. I forgot to put it in the script, but there was also 1 scavenger hunt item by the beach. Now that all my chores around the camp are done, I submitted my sidecards at Crawler's Wrap to reach rank 50, which already surpasses the highest rank I achieved on my first playthrough. I head over to the shop and buy out the rest of the stock, which finally gives me access to the most important tool in the game. Ah. Oh, that's so much better. How did I live without this? Now that the camp is mostly taken care of, I delve back into the Brain Tumbler, not to progress the story though, but to 100% the mines I've already visited. First, Sasha's, where I grabbed the 3 remaining figments on these high platforms. Then Mia's, tackling the race first. I did a couple runs on my own, doing my best to take my time since there's no longer a race to lose, which got me most of the way there. But for the last couple, I decided to use a guide, since the terrible draw distance and use of color makes this section especially painful, as stated before. Overall, it took me 3 additional runs of the track in 15 minutes, on top of the 3 runs from before that took a total of 7 minutes. So honestly not too bad overall, but who knows how long I would have spent combing for the last 2 without the all figments guide I used. The rest of the figments in the final section weren't all too bad, although this one was a little tricky, and I did spend an embarrassing amount of time trying to get up here before realizing the last figment I needed was in the room prior. Next was the final visit to the Brain Tumbler experiment, where I collected all that remained, 3 figments and a cobweb, all of which needed levitation. Continuing the story, we find ourselves in our second boss fight, this one taking just long enough for me to remember that the combat in this game is not very fun. Jesus. Beating this fight sets my least favorite flag in the game, setting the sun and making all the campers disappear, and with it, most of the writing and world building that I love the game for. But important to this mission, it also finally allows us to go back to Oleander's Brain, where I obviously collect the cobwebs, final vault, and figments on the rail grind section, and also this one figment towards the beginning that I somehow managed to skip using the world's tamest sequence break. With the first 4 mental worlds 100% done and literally every collectible available to us minus 1 challenge marker, I end the session at rank 53 and slept easy knowing that from here on it'll get a whole lot simpler. The next chance I got, I delved back into the game with a burning desire to settle a score. I headed straight to the
Geodesic Psycho-Isolation Chamber
and headed to this tree where every guide says the last challenge marker is, and you gotta be fucking kidding me. With that finally off my mind, I head to the beach to progress the story through my least favorite section of the whole game. First, we fight the giant lungfish. And by fight, I mean we punch some boxes and then endure an auto-scrolling section. I don't mind auto-scrollers as much as some people, but this section is pretty offensive. Not only being stupidly long on a perfect run, but also using a disorienting fixed camera, and then these random cutscenes that show nothing of value, wasting even more of your time. All in all, it only took me 8 minutes, so it's hard to complain too much, but many good fights from games that actually emphasize combat last half of that or less. That fight is just the appetizer though, because immediately after is the next mental world, Lungfish. Granted, it's one of the shortest levels in the game in a casual playthrough, but there's something to be said about how they immediately go from the level introducing the game's best movement mechanic to the level that not only disables it entirely, but also slows all of your movement, except for tightrope walking for some reason. Thankfully, the level isn't hard at all, and even going for an all collectibles run isn't too bad. I just gotta slowly climb some buildings a few times.
What a thrill.
And really keep an eye out for these incredibly small vaults. This level also has the second golden helmet, notable only because of how unnotable they are if you aren't going for achievements. I reached rank 60 somewhere in this level, which is the first rank-related achievement that I didn't get on my first playthrough, and otherwise, this level went over pretty smoothly. I only ended up missing 1 vault and 1 figment, the former in the prison area, and the latter being this guy out here on the water early in the level before I realized you could actually stand in the water on this level. Both of which I grabbed immediately after finishing the level for the first time, which will be the case from here on out. Lungfishopolis acts as a weird intermission level, both taking place after the campgrounds go dark, but before we gain access to the new hub area, the mostly abandoned asylum, which is where we are plopped down after beating up this common rider wannabe. I grabbed the challenge marker up here before immediately turning on my heel and running back to the
Geodesic Psycho-Isolation Chamber
to grab this scavenger hunt item, which requires the use of the shield ability that we get in Lungfishopolis. After a short break, I head back to the asylum to tackle possibly the most iconic level in the game, the Milkman Conspiracy. You can argue whether or not it's the most iconic, but at the very least for me, it certainly has the most memorable series of sounds in the game. Going for 100% here isn't too much different from a casual playthrough, although checking the inside and backyards of every single house is somewhat tedious. Notably, we have our first combat encounter that actually feels like combat, our third golden helmet, my second favorite psi ability, clairvoyance, and this particular figment which, while not the hardest by any means, certainly feels the most maliciously placed, since it's hidden on the backside seam of a point of interest outside our view with nothing leading us to it. We can't actually get everything in one go in this level, since there's a couple of houses that are blocked off by gardeners until after we solve a mystery. If it weren't for the fact that we have to revisit all worlds after completion for this achievement anyways, I'd be a bit concerned at this point that my seeming inability to full clear levels on my first attempt is making me out to be bad at video games, which simply cannot be the case. I mean, Celeste is my favorite video game after all. What kind of fraud would have their favorite video game be left unbeaten despite having over 100 hours? And now that the gates to the asylum are open, I can grab the final scavenger hunt item, as well as the first of our 3 child brains. Frankie, Kitty, and JT. I head back to the
Geodesic Psycho-Isolation Chamber
for one final time, which is sad because I no longer have an excuse to say
Geodesic Psycho-Isolation Chamber.
So I can redeem the second scavenger hunt reward, which triggers the achievement. After quickly converting all the psi cards, I end the session at rank 76, with 6 of 10 mental worlds fully completed. I start the next session immediately diving into the next level. Now that we're in the asylum, the levels will go down smoother than, I don't drink enough alcohol to make this joke work, but essentially we'll be flying through the next chunk of the game. Gloria's Theater is quite the compact level, with most of it taking place in a single room, and consequently having half of all the collectibles available to grab to us before we get the first objective. The gameplay here is somewhat lackluster. Mostly we just gotta match the script and mood to the right set until we get access to the catwalk. Because of this, I always look back at this level as pretty mediocre, placing it in C tier at best. But now that I've matured a little, I'm appreciating the metaphors that are going on here past the surface level, which, given it's the theater level, is quite artfully ironic. Unfortunately, the gameplay hasn't changed at all, and knowing the solutions doesn't help since I have to explore every combination of mood and set to grab all the figments anyways. Some tedium later, I reached the catwalk, I passed the rank 80 threshold, and I 100% the level before beating it, just despite the prior dramatization. In the theater level. I'd make some comment about the irony of that, but I was a STEM kid, so instead I'll grab all the child brains in the portion of the asylum I just unlocked. Chops, Chloe, Maloof, and Milka. There's also another challenge marker in this area somewhere, but I didn't learn a thing from that last fiasco, so I simply turned in the children for the rewards and dove into what I remember being my favorite level in the game, Waterloo World. It's a wide open playground themed after war strategy games with no roadblocks and the most figments of any level by far, with incredibly straightforward puzzles and a much heavier emphasis on actual platforming. So I can see why it resonated with me. And yeah, returning to it, I still think it's the most fun. Although the storytelling is quite lacking, and having to grab every figment is slightly exhausting. It's pretty easy to miss just 1 or 2 and get completely lost, but with a guide by my side, I got through it with almost no roadblocks. Save for this asshole fairy out by the edge of the woods where no one would naturally wander over to. Smart ass devs. Oh, and also there's the 4th golden helmet sitting out here in the open. Man, we are just flying through this game now. At this point in the session, I was already playing for longer than every other individual recording. On to the penultimate level, Black Velvetopia. Going into this level, I'm a little scared since apparently if you aren't careful, you can lock your save file out of getting the last golden helmet here. The cramped hallway structure of the level makes the majority of the figments hard to miss, and the visual style makes most of them pop right out at you, but there's a select few that are a little egregious. Like this one hidden inside the basketball net, and these 2 that require you to place the window painting on the wrong spots to get. We also have multiple combat encounters in this level that actually feel like, well, combat.
Soon they'll be dragging your ass out of here. Hey, are you awake? Did you hear that?
It's been the case for previous levels as well, but it's actually super nice having maximum mobility boost from our high rank going into every level. It makes the scary and annoying parts a lot less scary and annoying. Who knew that rewards could be so rewarding? Down the alley behind the blue bag, access through the sewers, is this painting spot where you place the vines to access this secret garden, which not only contains some figments and a vault, but also has its own achievement for finding for some reason. If every world had a secret spot, maybe it'd make more sense, but the only other achievement like this is the one you get from Mia's world, which is, I think those circumstances are just a little different there. Placing the window painting here in the Dalmatian alley grants us golden helmet number 5, which is not the one that can be missed. This world just has 2 for some reason. The one that can be missed is at the very end of the level. When you get the confusion grenades from Dingo, make sure you actually fulfill his request and have the bulldog paint the ad, approach the ad to set the flag, and then talk to Dingo again before you hand in the last card to Edgar. If you don't do this, you can find yourself thrown into the final boss battle, and after the world is beaten, Dingo won't be there to give you the golden helmet anymore. Now I have every collectible in every mental world save for the final, so I finally decide to look up to collect that challenge marker and make my way up the final tower, grabbing this scary challenge marker near the top, some more psi cards, and the rest of the children's brains in order as follows. Benny, Bobby, Elka, Quentin, Dogan, Phoebe, Crystal, Clem, Nils, Vernon, Cussing, Mikhail, and Elton. right on the cusp of the end, we make a backup save, grab Mr. Pokelope, and then head all the way back to camp to turn in all the brains, not only for its achievement, but also so we can introduce every camper to Mr. Pokelope, the final missable achievement. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, the achievement wouldn't pop. My internet wasn't doing so hot at the time, so I decided to blame it on that and call it quits for the night, which I already had planned to do whether I got that achievement or not. After all was said and done, with all the cobwebs turned into cards and all the cards turned into challenge markers, I ended the session at rank 98, the maximum possible before the point of no return. As the pattern goes, I started the very last session by fighting the demons that plagued me the day before, and I quickly realized that I am, in fact, still a dumbass. Oh, I didn't show to Nils. I'm a fucking idiot. I thought that too. I thought that was the case. I was like, wait, did I show? I don't remember what Nils said. Did I show to Nils? I didn't fucking show to Nils. I also revisited the last 4 worlds I needed to in the Brain Tumbler to get this achievement to pop. This could be done now or after beating the game, but I decided to do it now just in case. After a lot of cutscenes and a boss fight, we land in the final mental world, where the rest of the achievements will be gained, the Meat Circus. Just because this is the final level though, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything too special about it for our purposes. Most of the baggage and figments are pretty much directly in our path, so as long as we don't walk through the door at the end of the Tunnel of Love before we're done, it's pretty stress-free. We get the last vault at the end of the bunny section, the last baggage at the end of the Tunnel of Love, and after grabbing all of the cobwebs and then turning them in to the fortune teller at the beginning of the level, the game lies to my face and says I've reached max rank. At this point, I'm only missing a single figment, and I know exactly where it is. This blue bunny on the rail section. Unfortunately, it seems that the hitbox for it is slightly misplaced, because you can't actually grab it while magnetized to the rail, and disconnecting ourselves from the rail doesn't seem to be an option without a break in the rails nearby. After throwing myself into the void a few times and trying to jump over from this chunk of geometry, I finally found the best way to do it is to jump from this circular section above. Ooh! And that's both of the last achievements popping at the same time. Holy shit. 101 of 100. I have 100% of the game. I could press Alt F4 right now. I'm kidding, of course. I took my victory lap through the final platforming section and beat the final boss completely satiated by my journey, and relished in my reward of this glorious spinning text in the Brain Tumbler. All levels 100% cleared, congratulations. Psycho Master Mob, because I'm Mob Psycho 100, do you get it guys? Mob Psycho. Psychonauts has always felt like a special game to me, and I've wanted to revisit it for a long time, but as someone who almost never replays games, I struggle to come up with a good excuse. Now, looking back at it, I'm really glad I came back with more life experience, with the added challenge of going for 100% in the game. It really forces you to take your time and appreciate the quieter moments of the game, which, in my opinion, has always been the game's strongest aspect. In the end, getting everything in the game turned out to be a lot more enjoyable than I thought it'd be, with almost no genuinely tedious or annoying bits. And it's led to me appreciating how intentional and deliberate the developers were about every aspect of the game. It's not flawless by any means, there's some real genuine jank to certain platforming segments, and the pacing of the levels and story feels like it goes from 0 to 100 to 0 to 100. But it really shouldn't be overlooked as a whole. In spite of it being a platformer that focuses on children, this is by no means a game that is made for children. It's a living and breathing world with characters who feel love and pain and deal with deep personal issues, beautifully told through the eyes of the pure and innocent. If you're someone who's willing to slow down and talk to characters and look past what's being said on the surface level, or heck, even just really get down on original and fun ideas, I seriously recommend giving Psychonauts a shot. You don't have to go for 100% by any means, but it's totally doable and honestly a lot of fun, as long as you keep aware of the time-sensitive stuff. And, you know, even if you don't really care about the game and we're just here for the entertainment value of the video, I appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, I'm glad, and if you want to see more, too bad! April Fools! I'm never doing this kind of thing again, you fucking idiots! I got you so bad. See, the joke is we put a lot of effort into making the joke is. Wait, how is this funny? Wait, who thought of this? Hold on, I got it. Yeah, Sly. What the hell? Like, this was a fucking awful idea. This isn't even funny. This is just a bunch of fucking extra work.